All right, nice. So this is pretty much the level where we left off. So we made this little lid with the icons inside of it as well. So we used a lot of booleans last time. Booleans is something we're going to be using today as well, at least at one time. And we have been using it only for the difference settings, so to exclude parts of a mesh, to delete parts of a mesh. But today we're actually going to be using it to unite two parts of a mesh. And I told you previously the reason why we made this squared mesh on top and why we didn't just fill it with one plane. And the reason for that is because we are now going to join this little ridge with the top part of our can, so it's going to be one part. So that's what we're going to be working to today, and I think we can probably get started on some of those water droplets as well. And that's going to be probably one of the most fun parts of this tutorial series. So let's just get started on this little ridge right now. And there are multiple ways to do that, as for most things in Blender. But to show you some variation in modeling, I want to show it to you with curves. So previously we have only been working with meshes. And now we're actually going to be working with some curves. So we're going to be making our own. Right. So let's get this started. I'm going to select this little 3D cursor icon. And I'm just going to move it right on top of the reference image. It makes it a little bit easier to just 3D model from the reference, so you don't have to look back and forth every single time, but it's just there in the background for when we need it. So instead of adding a curve right away, we're going to start with a mesh. And that allows me to show you something else. So we're going to add a mesh, a plane. There we go. Remember, we are in a side view, so you can't see the plane because it's zero thickness. So just rotate a little bit, and I'm just going to press R and Y and set this to 90, so to rotate that for 90 degrees. And let's move that out a little bit, so GX, there we go. And I'll just scale this down with S, there we go. Get to that side view. So we need pretty much this shape, right? So there's an outer kind of curve and an inner curve, and that inner curve is pretty much just like the mouth of a smiley face. So we're going to be doing that first, and I'm just starting with a mesh right now. And remember, the easiest way to make smooth corners from squared meshes is with a subdivision modifier. So add a modifier, add a subdivision surface, and that works with everything. So it works with curves, with planes, with meshes, so cubes, 3D objects. It works with a lot of things. So right now we can set this to, let's say, 3. And I'm going to mesh the viewport with the render right away. And right now we've got pretty much the circle ready. And we want this top part to be quite sharp. So remember what I told you before, we're going to add some loop cuts, because that's how we can change the sharpness of a subdivision modifier quite easily. So I'm going to press tab, and I'm just going to press Ctrl R and add an edge loop right there, left click, and just swipe that all the way to the top. Just like that. Right, so it's way too stretched out, so I'm going to box select these top vertices, and if you are not in box select mode, you can press W a few times, and you can see that it changes the icon on the top left. So if you press W a few times, you will eventually see this little squared box ring outside of the cursor, and that is box select. So you can draw a little box around the things that you want to select. Make sure that you are I'm in vertex mode right now, so press 1 on your keyboard, select those parts, and just move them down with GZ. So we've got about the same shape as our part of the reference image. Now we need one more thing in the middle, so press Ctrl R, add an edge loop in the middle, left click, escape. There we go. Right now it makes it a little bit too squared on the bottom. I want this to be nice and smooth. So what I'm going to do is select both of these endpoints, so this one on the left and this one on the right, by holding shift, and I'm going to press G, Z, and just move that up a little bit, so it gets nice and rounded at the bottom there, like so. And now we need this curve on the top, right? It's a little bit curved, so I'm just going to select these top 2 vertices and press G, Z, and just move that down, so we get that nice smooth shape. Beautiful. Alright, so this doesn't really look like what we need. We got a face right now, and we want this ridge only, so it's a rounded ridge. So how do we get that? Well, it's quite easy. We're going to press tab to go out of edit mode, and I'm going to apply this modifier. So hover your mouse over it and press Ctrl A. And the reason why I'm applying this is because we now get the actual geometry of this outside line. As you can see, our geometry now changed, so the subdivision modifier is applied, and we can double click on this outside edge, hold shift, and just keep clicking on parts of the outside mesh to select the entire loop on the outside there. And make sure that you only select the outside loop. So zoom in a little bit, make sure that only the outside loop is selected. Double click, and that should be connected nicely now. And what we want to do now is just press Shift D and press Z, lock that to the Z axis, and now you can move it down. And you see we only got that little line, right? So we only have a nice line, and we don't really need the rest of that geometry. So what we can do now is just box select that entire top geometry like that, press delete, and just delete that whole part. We only need this outer edge. Beautiful. So we want to have thickness in this edge, and the easiest way to do that is by transforming it to a curve. So we're going to go back and forth to curves and meshes quite some times in the upcoming tutorials. So what I'm going to do is press Object, Convert, and let's just make this into a curve. There we go. And nothing really changes except that this little green icon, and I told you this in the previous tutorial, is turning from the triangle into this curve icon, right? So we can go to that tab, and now we can actually add some very easy geometry to this curve by opening that geometry tab. And we have a bevel option right there. And we can pretty much set that depth a little bit larger, so it adds some thickness, right? So this is the easiest way to make a nice profiled surface or profiled curve. Beautiful, this is exactly what we need, right? So this matches that shape quite nicely, as you can see. Okay, so I'm gonna press right mouse and just shade this smooth for now, and we're not gonna use it right away. We still have another part of the mesh that we have to create. So that's this left part and the right part. So right away you can of course see that those are the same parts, left and right. So we're only gonna make one and then just mirror it to the other side, just for efficiency. So I'm gonna add something that we can use to create this flowing line. And this one is not a connected shape, so we only have one line. We don't have a loop like this part. So what I'm gonna do is just add a plane. So press Shift A, Mesh, Plane. And I don't want to use the entire plane. I just want to have one vertex, one point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Edit Mode. So press Tab, press A to select everything, and then press M. And let's just merge all of those points at center. Right, so now you may think that the geometry is gone, and it isn't. You still have one point. If I move this around, let's see, do we have one point? We don't. The reason for that is because I messed up. We have to go to vertex mode first. So press 1 on your keyboard, and then press M, and then merge them at the center. And now we do have this vertex, right? So one little point is all we need right now. And let's go to side view and move this over to the place where it needs to be. So it starts a little bit above the smiley face, so pretty much right there. And I'm just going to extrude the rough points. And if I look at this, there are 3 points that I want to extrude. So we have this one. So there's one curve that bends like that. And we've got one curve that bends the other way. So to follow that smiley face, so I'm going to extrude that first point inwards a little bit, like that. And actually, let's create that curve right away. So this one, right there. So press E to extrude it down and inwards a little bit at the last one. Right, so right now it's quite blocky. You can move these points around to make it a little bit smoother from the start. But this is pretty much the shape that we want to use for the roundings. And how do we make this round? Some of you may already guess it. We're going to add a subdivision modifier. So press Tab, go out of that, that geometry view, and our vertex is now inside of the reference image. So we have to move that out a little bit. So press G and X. I just move that out. There we go. And let's go to the modifier tab. So the blue little gear icon, add modifier, and subdivision. And let's just set this at 2. All right, so let's go to side view. It's numpad 3. And let's just change a few of those points. So go to edit mode and change them a little bit so we have the exact shape that we need. So select vertexes and press G to move them around. And this is where your personal opinion comes in a little bit, so you can move these around exactly how you want them to be. I think something like that is going to be fine, beautiful. Go out of edit mode if you are satisfied. And once again, just apply that modifier. So hover your mouse over it and press Ctrl A and go to Object, Convert, Curve, and go to the Curve tab. And let's add some depth to that bevel once again. Something like that is beautiful. All right, let's go ahead and right mouse shade smooth. And now I actually want to close these endpoints, so the endpoints of these meshes, because as you make a curve and add a profile, the endpoints are open by default. And there's an option to close this, very easy, and that is the fill caps. There is an issue that comes with that, and I can show that to you. If I apply this, so object convert mesh, and if I go to edit mode, then you can see that it is triangles, and it's quite weird how it all turned out to be connected, right? It's not something that you are looking for, and it's also splits from the rest of the mesh. As you can see, I can move this around freely, so it's not connected at all. So that's why I never really use the fill caps option, right? So I'm gonna Control Z a few times until that is no longer the case. So fill caps, feel free to use it when you want only to have like a closed face there. But if you actually want to do something with it, then this may not be the right option. So I'm gonna go and just convert this to a mesh without having that fill caps option enabled. So just go to mesh, and I'm just gonna go to edit mode, and I'm gonna go to edge select, so press 2, and I'm just gonna double click on that outer edge and press F, just like that. It's filled, and now you can see that it's no longer separated from the mesh, and it's just one plane. Right, so the reason why I'm doing this is because I want this nice rounding on the edge. I want to create a little bevel. So what I can do is select that face. So face select is it's just 3 on your keyboard. And I press Ctrl B and just bevel that a little bit. Scroll up 2 times maybe to create some nice roundings. And left click to apply. Now go to the other side of that curve and just repeat that step. So press 2, double click on that edge, press F, and press Ctrl B to bevel. Beautiful. Right, so now we have got a closed mesh, and I want this to be at the same kind of position as our mouth. So I'm going to select my mouth, I'm going to press Tab, I'm going to press A, I'm going to press Shift S, cursor to selected, and that will just move that cursor exactly to the center of those points, so the center of that curve. And we're going to press Tab to go out of edit mode. I'm going to select my left part right there. I'm going to press right mouse, set origin to geometry. And you can see that the origin is at least at the center of the x-axis, right? So it's at the center of that profile, the circle. And that's exactly what we need, because we only want this to be at the same line in the x direction. So now that you have got your origin right, you can press Shift S, selection to cursor, and it will move that part to the center of the smiley. And I'm gonna move this to the left a little bit now, so press G, Y, and move that to where you want on the Y-axis, something like that, and press GZ, move that up a little bit. Just like that. So now we've got them in the same plane on the X-axis. Beautiful. All right, now we have to mirror this. Mirroring is very easy. Go to the modifier tab, add modifier, mirror, and we want to mirror this in the Y direction. So you have to uncheck X and check Y. And there is one issue. Your object will be mirrored in the origin of your object. So you can either set your origin to the correct place, which will be the 3D cursor, or we can simply mirror this with the origin of a different object. So if we select the object right here, so mirror object, if we click on the eyedropper and highlight the smiley, it will mirror it in the origin of that smiley, and we have that origin set up nicely already. So that's beautiful. All right, so now I want these objects to be on top of my can. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna join these objects together, right? So I'm gonna select these side parts, And we first have to apply this modifier. So hover your mouse over it and press Ctrl A. And hold Shift, select your smiley. And let's see, I think our smiley is still a curve. So press Object, Convert, Mesh, and press Ctrl J. And now it's one object. So we can just move this around freely as we want, and it will all stay together nicely. All right, so where do we want this to be placed? Well, it has to be somewhere under our lid, at least at the front of our lid, somewhere right there. And I'm going to select my can. I'm going to press Tab. And let's see if there's a point that we can use to just quickly move our smiley face. I'm just going to call this a smiley face from this point, where we can move that smiley face to. And I'm just going to select maybe this point right there and press Shift S cursor to select it. That's just the easiest way, in my opinion, to quickly move your cursor to a point that is on the right face. So on the top part of this can, I'm going to press Tab. I'm going to select my smiley. I'm going to press Shift S, selection to cursor. And right away, I'm going to press R, Y, and it's a guess if it's 90 or minus 90 at this point. So I'm going to do 90 first, wrong direction. So just press backspace 2 times to remove that 90. And then just enter minus 90. Just like that. All right, so let's press numpad 7. We want to go to top view, and we want to scale this object to the right size, and we want to move it to the right position as well. So we are just going to press S to scale this down. Something like that. And we're just going to freely move it around to try and get it to the right place. Something like that looks nice. Left click to apply. And let's see how that looks compared to the reference. I think that's looking quite solid, actually. Yeah, nice. I like it. All right, so what I'm going to do is try to unite my can with this part right there. And that's going to be quite easy, at least if it works. It's always a little bit of a guess with booleans because it all depends on the geometry that you're using. So what we're going to do first is select our can. We're going to add a modifier, add a boolean, and we're going to select union. So not difference, but union. Set this to fast from the start and select this eyedropper for object. And we want to select that smiley face, right? So just select that. And you can't really see what happens now. But if you click once again on that smiley face, you can see that you have it selected now. And if you now go to your object tree and find the one that is selected, so it's plain 0.001 for me right now, and just hide that. So click that eye and the second eye. You can see what happens for your can. Right now, it is not working properly, right? So there's a bunch of reasons why that's happening. And right now, it's just a matter of finding the right issue. So we're going to unhide this real quick, unhide the plane. We're going to select it. And we're just going to be working our way through the issues that can be the cause. First one, it may be a cause of the normals of our object. So the normals basically define what the outside and the inside of your mesh is. So we're going to go to tab, press A. I'm going to press 3. And I'm going to press Shift N. Shift N. And Shift N, it already says it right there. It recalculates those normals. And it can just change the normals of your mesh to be into the same direction, right? So if that's the issue, that should now be fixed. I'm going to press Tab to go out of that view. I'm going to hide my plane. And it's still not working properly, right? So the next option can be to go into your Boolean settings. So select your can and just try exact. Beautiful. So it's now changing the different way around. Beautiful. So I like that you're now actually getting to see some of the issues in Blender as well, some of the struggles that we have to deal with, some of the errors that we have to try and fix on the go. So we're going to just play around with some options. All right, so self-intersection already did the trick. So you have to play around with some settings. I usually go the same way, calculate normals. So the first step we did, then I'm going to try to change my Boolean from fast to exact or the other way around. And then I'm going to play around with the solver options. So I'm just going to hit self-intersection or hold tolerant and even try it with the fast one, for example. Change this overlap threshold. If you set this to 0, it's going to work as well. So there's a lot of ways that you can try and make it work. And right now I'm just going to leave this at fast and set the overlap threshold to 0. Beautiful. All right, so we now have one united can with our smiley face. Beautiful. And I'm just going to leave that right there. I'm not going to worry about any of those small ridges right there that we can barely even see. I think we focused enough of those curves for now. I think you can work away your own way around how to make that smaller ridge on the outside now. So what we're going to be focusing on next is something that's going to be fun. It's those water drops. And water drops make every product that needs to be cold, every product that needs to make you thirsty, it will make it look amazing. And basically every drink commercial ever has some kind of water or condensation or something like that in it. So it's a very important skill to be able to control. So we're gonna be making that first. And anytime you need to scatter something on another object, in the way like this, for example, or if you want to add grass to a floor, if you want to add trees to a floor, so if you want to make a forest, for example, or if you want to add, I don't know, what else can you scatter? Flowers, rain. You can scatter all kinds of objects, rocks on the ground, small pebbles. So anytime you want to scatter something, so add a lot of stuff, a lot of objects on a surface or on an object, you use particle systems or geometry nodes, but we're going to be working our way around the particle system first because it's a little bit easier than geometry nodes for now. So we're going to be using particle systems. And the first thing that you have to look at is where do you want those particles to be? And if you look on this can, it's going to be at the side, so at the side ring, and it's going to be on the top as well. And you can think about this realistically as well. So where will the water droplets form? So where would they shape? Well, it's going to be on the side of the can officially. I'm not sure why there are none on the top right there. Maybe it's just something that they, I don't know why actually, but realistically there will be some over there as well, and on the top of course. So that's something that we have to define first. So where on our can do we want water droplets? If you don't define that, it will add water droplets everywhere, and it's going to be showing them in those ridges as well, and that will cause some issues because your water droplets will stick through the mesh. So you have to think about that before you add a particle system. And the way to define where you want those particles to be is with vertex groups. So if you select your object, you hit tab, and if you go to this little object data properties tab, so the green triangle, and if you go to, where is it? Vertex groups is the top one. You can hit plus, and you now have an empty vertex group. And we want to select all of the places where we want these particles to be. So I'm going to select 3 to go to face select. So I want particles to be right there. I want particles to be right there, right there. And let's just do this one as well. And let's see later if we get any kind of issues on the top with water droplets intersecting with the mesh. I think we'll be fine. And I'm not going to do this lower part, maybe this one. But not this one right now, because it's small and it will only make it harder for the particle system to work properly. Alright, and we want it to be on the top part as well. So right there. And we can just hold shift, select one of those faces, and if I now hold control, so you can release shift now. If you press control and some other face on top, Blender will try to find the shortest path from that selected face to the second selected face. So right now I've got nothing pressed. And if I now just hold control and click on this face right there, it will find the shortest path and select everything in between. So we can do that to make some quick selections. So hold control, select this part, hold control, select this part, hold control there. And now we can just hold control and select parts inside of that mesh. Just like that, select all of those corners and just make it close the loop. Beautiful. Right, so this is going to be the place where we want those water droplets to be. And before that's going to be happening, you need to assign these selected faces to the vertex group. And I'm just going to hit assign. So left click, assign. And there we go. It is now selected. So if you now deselect your mesh and select that group that you just created and click the select button, you can see what that vertex group is about. So what is inside of that vertex group. And for ease of use, you can rename this group to Raindrop. And now you've got a vertex group called Raindrop. You can reuse that at any time in the future, but you've got it set up right now. Okay, so real quick, we still have a little bit of time left, I guess. So let's make some of these water drops, and that's gonna be fun. So if we want to make this water drop, we can keep in mind that it's gonna be very small. So we don't need a very detailed water drop. It can be quite low poly, right? And each time you can make some of these shortcuts, some moves that will just make Blender respond better to your mesh. So each time you can save some geometry, you will save some geometry. Because otherwise, when you build larger scenes, and if you don't take those steps, then your scene will get way more hard on your computer quicker. So try to save as much geometry as you can. So we are gonna make some low poly raindrops. Right, so press Shift A, mesh, and we're gonna be working with a UV sphere. And right away we get a little tab on this bottom left that we can open up by clicking on that little arrow. And my mouse is completely in the way right now, which is perfect. So the green mouse is covering some of the sections that we actually need to show. But the first thing, so this one is called segments. I can hover my mouse over it, that's good. But for you, it will say segments in the front as well. And that will basically mean how many of those vertical rings there are on your object. And I'm just gonna set this to a decent amount, like 16. And the second one will be rings in the horizontal way. So I'm gonna select this and set this to about 8, looking good. So the reason I'm not going any lower is because we still have to create a product render, right? So if you're gonna make an animation at some point, you do want a little bit of detail in your water drops, but not a lot. So we're gonna get somewhere in the middle, do 16 and 8. And remember, we can always subdivide this later on, but I think 16 and 8 is the geometry that we need to create the shape of a water bottle. Right, so I'm gonna move this to the right a little bit, so press G and Y. And we're gonna press Tab, and here's where we're gonna make some magic happen. So I'm gonna press 1 and select this bottom vertex, and I'm gonna use the proportional edit tool. And we have covered this previously, so we can just enable that by clicking on this little circle icon. And we need to set this to smooth now. So this is gonna be smooth. And I'm gonna go into side view, so numpad 3. And I'm gonna press G. And I'm gonna scroll down with my mouse to create a larger circle. And I'm gonna press Z. So we wanna move that bottom side of our water drop up with the rest of the mesh. So I'm gonna move that up, and I'm gonna scroll my mouse up or down, depending on the shape that you actually want to create. So try to match mine right now. So we're gonna move this up until we get some kind of water drop shape, right? So the bottom part is what's gonna be placed on top of the surface. Let's click to apply, and the top part is just gonna be like the spherical shape of a water drop. So that's gonna be beautiful. And right now we've got a very circular shape. In nature, I'm gonna stress this out a lot. In nature, things are very organic. Nothing is the same. So we're gonna be making some different variations of this water drop, and I'm gonna go to the top view, and I'm gonna select some different parts of this water droplet, starting by this outer corner. I'm gonna press G and scroll up a little bit. So I'm gonna decrease the size of that proportional edit tool, and I'm just gonna stretch this water droplet out in that direction, select a different point, and move it in right there, and just do some random stuff at different parts of your mesh, right? And you can't make any mistakes here. This is just a water droplet. It can take any kind of shape. So we're gonna just select different parts of our mesh and just make it a little bit more organic looking, like so. I'm gonna press tab, and I think that's fine for the first water drop. I'm gonna press Shift D and Y and just move that over. And we're gonna make just a slight variation. So press numpad 7, press tab, and select some different parts of your mesh, and just change the shape of your water droplet and make it nice and different than the first one. Something like this. It's looking different. And we can even make it a little bit less high, for example. Select the top part, press G, Z, move that down a little bit, like so. And I'm going to shift D one more time, lock this in the Y-axis. Just like that. And press numpad 7, press tab, and just make one final variation. So we have 3 to work with later. And I want to make this one a little bit smaller maybe. And just make this into a shape that you're comfortable with. Something like that is looking beautiful. Alright, so I want this to be smooth, so I'm going to select one, right mouse, shade smooth, and do that for the other ones as well, like that. I'm going to go to side view, numpad 3, and I'm just going to move them all to about the same level. So the left one is right about that line, so I'm going to move the middle to right about that line as well, and this one too. Right about there. And now you have to think about the next step. So you want to make those water droplets appear on your mesh in some way or another. And right now they are obviously massive compared to the can. Those are some huge water drops. Don't worry about that. We're going to change that once we apply them on the can. But right now we have to think about where those objects will be scattered, where on the can they will be scattered. And basically what happens is that it's gonna try to move the origin of your object on top of the surface that you're adding your particles to. So that would mean right now that your water droplet will be floating on top of the surface as your origin is moved below the actual mesh, so below the water droplets. So the water droplets is there and the origin is below it. So what do we want to do? We want to go to edit mode and we want to select like the bottom part of the mesh. So I think this ring right here is the lowest part of a drop. So I'm going to press 2, double click that ring, shift S, cursor to selected, press tab, right mouse, set origin to 3D cursor. So now our origin is on the right place. And we're going to do that for the other parts as well. So for the other drops, press tab, find the lowest point, double click, shift S, cursor to selected, press tab, right mouse, set origin to 3D cursor, and repeat that one more time. So that is tab, find the lowest point, press 2, edge select, and then double click, shift S, cursor to selected, press tab, and right mouse, set origin to 3D cursor. So that's just a repetitive process. You're going to be using that a lot. And now we have that set up nicely. And before you're going to be scattering this around, you want to check if your object is ready to be scattered. So I'm going to select that top part on this right. So this is called item for you. I have so many tabs right there. You can only see the eye, but it will be called item. And you can see here what the scale is. And right now I've got the scale at 1. Right, so at some points when you're modeling quickly, you forget whether or not you scaled your model at some point. So if your scale is now different, so if it's not 1, it can appear different in your actual particle system later on. So I mostly try to keep this scale at 1 before I scatter them around on another object. Beautiful. Alright, so in order to scatter multiple objects in one particle system, so in one raindrop system, we need this to be in the same collection, right? So we want these objects to be linked together somehow. So I'm going to select all of them, select one, hold shift, select the second, hold shift, select the third, and I'm going to press M, move to a new collection, and this new collection is going to be called raindrops, just like that. Beautiful. And press Ctrl S to save your files every once in a while. And now we've got this completely set up to be scattered around on our can beautifully. And I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a cliffhanger because this is where I'm going to be ending this tutorial because we're over that 30-minute mark. But we've got it set up perfectly, so in the next tutorial we can start creating this raindrop particle system and we can actually start creating these materials as well. Alright, so I hope that was good to follow, easy to follow. If there are any questions, this is the time to let me know.
I'm overwhelmed here. I just want to say thank you. thank you for having the class. And yeah, looking forward to the next.
Nice. Um, yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today. Um, this this part, man, it had to be annoying. It just had to be annoying for the tutorial. Like I
Yeah,
said,
no, I think it was nice that you were able to go through. I can tell you kind of went through the steps that you would have gone through if that would have just happened to you. So it was cool to see kind of the problem solving steps for that specific issue.
yeah, I think that's a very important thing to show in Blender. A lot of tutorials will prepare a tutorial five times to just get the the exact workflow right. But the issue is at that point that you just don't know what to do when something goes wrong. So if you change a geometry a little bit, or you change the scaling, or if anything else happens, you will not know how to fix it. So I think it's important to show some of those issues as well, and some of these steps that you can take to fix some of these issues as well. At some point, you will probably encounter new issues, and you will find new solutions. And the fun thing of being with such a large group of people that are interested in Blender is that we can share those issues with each other and solve them together, and share those um, the ideas to solve them as well. So I think that's a nice part of being with a nice group of Blender people.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Nino. And for everyone in here, we were taking screenshots, so you will receive your Piffle points. Then either later today or early tomorrow, I will upload the class video to YouTube and throw it in the class archives for you guys.
Amazing. All right. This is. I'm gonna give you a little assignment, guys. It's not gonna be the actual quest for this week. But as we're coming close to texturing and adding materials to our cans, I want you all to think of the label that you want to be on your can, whether that's going to be Red Bull or something else. Think of what you want to add there and try to find an image of that as well. All right, so it will be fun to have some different results of cans. So it's not all going to be Red Bull. So get a little bit creative with that as well. That will be fun, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Nice. I'll add that to the quest section as well. And of course, I'll be giving you. I think I'm just gonna give you something to watch because we're still in those early stages, and it's important that you all get excited and find your own styles and interests as well. So it's probably gonna be another nice video to get you inspired and get you excited.
Yeah, I love those videos.
Nice.
I agree. This video, like especially last video, like tremendously mind blowing. Like for real, for real. It was amazing to see like how far it can go if you put the right amount of time to actually learn the skills. Like how far it actually can go. So it's really mind blowing.
Oh yeah. And it's stuff like this. And I think recently there was a breakdown of one of the 6 movies ever that was made in Blender. I think a breakdown got released of that, so maybe I'll share that one. It's called Making of Charge, which is I don't know who it was, but somebody already shared like the
Yeah, I shared that last week.
you shared that. Yeah, so 8 hours ago, Blender Studio released how that was made and stuff with people talking about that. So I may be sharing that one with you all because it's a very interesting video.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So if there are not any more questions, I'll just end that class right here. And I hope you're all excited for the next class because we're gonna be starting rendering this out real quick. After, of course, we add those nice water drops that we created in this one. So it's gonna start looking more and more like an actual product render. So that's exciting.
Awesome. Thank you again, Nino, and thank you everyone for coming and hanging out and learning some Blender with us. Like I said, be on the lookout either later today or tomorrow for the recording to be in the archives. you'll receive your piffle points, and then I'm sure Nino will put something in the Blender quest a little bit later for everyone.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all for joining me. Share some Blender stuff. I'm already looking forward to next week. Oh, next week is after Christmas, isn't it? So
Next week would be the 20. Oh, let me check. It would be the 28th.
oh yeah. All right. So I'm already gonna wish you all a very Merry Christmas, I guess then.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right. See you guys later.
Yeah, peace.
Peace.